Adventure Time is a show that's filled with bad father figures. And while that sentence likely made you think of Finn and Martin or Marceline and Hudson, Son of Rat Bear, one of the final episodes of the series, focuses on the turbulent relationship between Flame Princess and her father and how she learns to deal with it, and that's what we're talking about today. In this video, we're going to go through the episode and talk about how it uses its various songs to wrap up Flame Princess's arc and continue the multiple series-long themes regarding parental relationships.
Clam wrap. Juicy like nectar. My name is Nectar.
The clam wrap that opens up this episode is this ridiculously cozy scene that benefits tremendously from the fact that at this point in the series, we're over 250,000 episodes in, as Nectar, Finn, and Flame Princess all get little raps to start off the episode. While the raps in this one are never quite technically impressive, with one exception that we'll get to later, there are quite a few clever, albeit somewhat goofy bars throughout, and the beats behind them vary quite a bit past your typical cartoon rap instrumental, which helps elevate them throughout the episode. The first scene also helps establish the fact that Finn and Flame Princess have settled quite nicely into just being friends after their long and messy history throughout the series, which allows the entirety of the episode to be about Phoebe and eventually her relationship with her father. Anyway, after the friendly rap battle between the pair, we get to the introduction of this episode's antagonist, Victor Marilyn, who looks quite familiar. While the fact that Finn doesn't recognize Toronto with a mustache initially feels a bit odd for season 10 17-year-old Finn, upon rewatching this episode multiple times, I've kind of started to love just how goofy it is, as it reminds me a lot of the earlier seasons of the show. There's actually somewhat of a constant throughout this episode, as this is very much a plot that the show would have in seasons 2 or 3, with Flame Princess having to rap battle against the Son of Rat Bear for her kingdom, but I really like how they take the goofiness of the earlier seasons and eventually apply the later seasons' ability to tell really genuine character-focused stories, as this ultimately becomes perhaps the best episode that's actually about Phoebe and not just about how Finn feels about her. This episode is actually super focused on Flame Princess, as besides being the only character that's in every scene, it also perhaps shows the most real version of the character, as besides just her very low-key outfits throughout the entire thing, Son of Rat Bear almost certainly features the most down-to-earth version of the character, which ultimately results in her becoming this super relatable character for the first time in the series. Anyway, we'll get back to her journey in the episode later, but first we gotta talk about the pair of scenes in this one that focus on developing the titular character, starting with Finn and Phoebe's journey to talk to his father. Besides the predictable change in voice actors, which really isn't that jarring considering this episode is over 100 episodes past his last appearance, Rat Bear Sr.'s appearance in this one is nothing short of hilarious. Besides just the build-up in Flame Princess and Finn's horror as they learn about his son literally destroying him in a rap battle, the end of this scene is easily my favorite joke of the episode, and honestly one of my favorite in the series.
He rapped my legs off.
Moving on to the second of these setup scenes, which is admittedly a bit weaker, largely due to the worst set of raps in the episode. Besides just being not very fun to listen to, as well as not really being well written in comparison to the other ones in this episode, the whole point of the scene is supposed to be that Son of Rat Bear bodies the gingerbread rapper in their battle, but their raps are pretty much the same rhythmically, and if anything, Gingerbread Man had the stronger bars. I get the point is supposed to be that Son of Rat Bear gets really personal in his disses, but that's not really possible to figure out without the context of this episode's ending. Still though, the bit of Son of Rat Bear being able to cause physical damage with his rhymes, even if it does make no sense, does look really fun visually, and the way the scene ends with him destroying the tavern and chasing Finn and FP out does make for a pretty good scene, even if the raps are still pretty weak and his only diss towards the princess is that she doesn't have any life experience, which makes little sense for her character. They abandon this angle pretty quickly to get to some much more interesting stuff with her father, but we do get the Flame Princess experience rap out of it, which is really the only full song of the episode. It's not thematically anything of substance, but it's got this bouncy beat that's really fun to listen to as Phoebe raps about going on adventures with Finn, and we get this sequence that's full of callbacks and some neat shots with Flame Princess interacting with characters and set pieces
that she usually doesn't get to interact with.
Anyway, after the scene ends, Flame Princess realizes that, as Finn said, life isn't a test you can cram for, as we get the final bit of BMO bullying Nectar in the show.
Maybe there is an interesting thing about you that you just don't realize. Like how Nectar only just found out there is a face on his can, and now he thinks the can is his conjoined queen.
I don't expect you to understand the bond I share with my family.
This great joke leads Phoebe to realize that perhaps the interesting thing about her is her relationship with her father that kept her in a lantern and that she usurped at age 14 and kept in that same lantern until he eventually escaped and declared himself the Chipmunk King, so she goes and tries to talk things out with him. Despite the inherent goofiness of the scene, I love how real some of the dialogue in it, especially from Phoebe, feels, as she goes to her father without any real plan and just kinda hopes that things will work out. It's a really humanizing moment for her character, and I love how Keith David's performance as the Flame King just kills it, as he interprets her attempt at reconciliation as an apology for putting him in the lantern, which is, of course, the exact same thing he did to her. This scene ends with a chipmunk rap, which is definitely the best rap of the episode by pure sonic value, as it's the only one that sounds good outside of being in a cartoon, as it almost feels like the episode wanting to have one really solid verse by an actual rapper in this episode that's all about rap. Anyway, this episode sets up Phoebe's pretty jacked up mindset heading into the final scene of the episode, the rap battle between her and Son of Ratbear. The latter gets us started with some verses that don't really have anything to do with Flame Princess's arc during this episode. Like, yeah, it is kind of entertaining to hear him roast her taste in men or whatever, but I think that a bar about her desire for her father's approval would have fit the ending of the episode a little bit better. Speaking of which, the fake out with the reveal of the Flame King being in the audience before telling his daughter that he didn't come for her reinforces an idea that the rest of the episode runs with, being that some people just don't change and that you have to deal with it, as Flame Princess does in the roast of her dad that follows. The last rap of the episode has a bunch of great moments in it, despite not really flowing well as a rap, but we'll talk about it a bunch more after we wrap up the episode. Speaking of which, watching FP first address her father and then literally tear apart Son of Ratbear is really cathartic, and they use the crowd really well to make the moment feel like a big finale. The very last shot of this episode might be the biggest moment of it all, as the Flame King gives his daughter somewhat of a compliment, and she has to choose how to react after everything they've said to each other throughout the episode.
Hey, honey! You're actually not bad!
If it feels like I went through that final scene rather quickly, that's because I did, because I knew I'd be talking about it at length here, as it really contains the bulk of this episode's thematic value. While I think there are a couple of different ways you can look at Phoebe's relationship with her dad in this episode, the way that I see it, Son of Ratbear showcases FP finally moving past holding out hope that her father will suddenly become a good dad and give her the validation that she seeks. Throughout all of the Flame King's appearances in the series, and especially in this episode, he never gives any indication that he wants to be a good father to Phoebe, and yet, as seen her trying to get him to apologize in the cave, a part of her still thinks that maybe one day he'll suddenly be the dad that she's always needed. For the split second during the rap battle where she believes that her father came to support her, she suddenly perks up before seeming absolutely devastated when he not only confirms that he just happened to come, but also demeans her rapping ability, which is her main passion at this time and for the rest of the series. This breakdown by her in the middle of a rap battle with the Son of Ratbear eventually transforms the rap battle to temporarily being her against her father, as her verse explains why he isn't somebody to look up to and seek the approval of, as she points out the fact that despite being this powerful king, that he was overthrown by his 14-year-old daughter. All of this leads to her declaring that,
"I don't need you or anyone, cause I'm the real Flame King."
This line from Phoebe isn't just referring to the fact that she is currently the ruler of the Flame Kingdom, but also that the Flame King that she wanted to look up to and have the validation of has become herself. Instead of looking to her father for confirmation that she's doing the right thing, after finally confronting him and her feelings, she's able to validate her own emotions and ability. Which brings us back to the final moment of the episode, where immediately after moving past the need for her father's validation, she finally gets some from him as he compliments her rapping. Phoebe has three options here, as she can 1. Seep back into her old ways and latch onto her father's approval, 2. Get angry and spend energy to yell at him, or 3. The option that she picked, being to accept it and move on and not giving him any more thought than he deserves. Adventure Time as a whole, and especially the stories it tells about kids having to deal with less than ideal parents, is sometimes about needing to move on and stop dwelling on either the past or a hypothetical idealist future. And in its last season, and Flame Princess's last episode as a primary character, the show finally gives her an episode where she doesn't exist relative to Finn or her father, and is finally able to become her own person, something mirrored by the end of almost every character's arc in the series as the epitome of the show. Anyway, that's about it for me. If you have an idea for an episode of Adventure Time or any other cartoon you want me to cover, leave it down in the comments. And if you want to see my terrible opinions about animation that don't make it into videos, my Twitter is somewhere in the description. Either way, this has been AmpleSamuel, and I'll see you in hopefully about a week with a video that surprisingly isn't a 10 to 15 minute analysis of a single episode. Thanks for watching.